Turning our sights to the United States, after Wednesday's chaos in the Capitol, Congress has finally certified Joe Biden as the next president of the United States, ready for his inauguration in just 12 days' time, January 20th. Victories in the two Senate runoff votes in Georgia mean that for the very first time, or at least the first time since 2009, the Democrats will control the White House, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Well, Ed Stringham is the economics professor at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, and president of the AIER, that's the American Institute for Economic Research. Thanks very much for joining us, Ed. Let's start first with, the stars effectively aligning for the Democratic Party here. How will they make use of their power over the next 4 years, do you think?
Well, he does have some razor-thin margins, so I would predict he's not going to become extremely out of the middle, out of the center. I think that's how he did get elected. One thing that a lot of my colleagues are optimistic for is he might put an end, or at least reduce these trade wars that the current president has been pushing for the last 4 years. A lot of business interests have been complaining about that, as taxes on American corporations, taxes on American consumers. So if he lets that up, that could be really good for the economy. Another thing that could be really good for the economy is relaxing some of the immigration restrictions of the current president for the past 4 years. A lot of Silicon Valley firms have been clamoring to hire more workers from outside the United States. So I think those would be relatively non-controversial policies that a lot of businesses and investors and consumers would like.
OK, so it's your hope that he would change tack when it comes to trade and warring factions with various trading partners, but also a sort of relaxation of immigration policy. Those sound like hopes, but how realistic are they for this president?
I think that we had a fairly long consensus of the idea that international trade is good, World Trade Organization, other things like that. And the current president really upended a lot of these agreements that people spent years advocating for. Adam Smith, Richard Cobden, talking about the importance of trade with all people, all countries. So I think that would be relatively uncontroversial to just go back to what we've been doing for so long, cooperating. I think the current president was trying some very interesting, weird, I would say, things with China, only to provoke them. So the idea that we're going to decouple from China, that has actually worsened relations with the United States and China. And we've got all these tariffs now on all different countries. So I think relaxing those would be pretty popular among many people.
Now, there's an interesting dilemma here, and it's the same for any prime minister, any president, no matter what country. How do you offset the need to reopen the economy in a sort of a post-COVID world, that's hoping that we get there at some point, with the need to sort of temper and trammel growth in the form of regulations and taxes? How's he going to do that?
Yeah, that's one area where I would say a lot of people, at least I know, are a little bit more worried about his policies. He has been talking about increasing corporate tax rates, which I would argue be harmful for American corporations and investors, increasing that from 21 to 28%. On the other hand, I don't think he's going to be pushing for an extremely anti-business agenda, just because he has those razor-thin margins in the Senate and the House. So I think if he starts really making an extreme case of higher taxes, higher regulations, it's going to actually expose his party to losing seats in the future. So I do think his inclination is probably to, be more into regulation and into taxes. But the question is, how far is he going to push that? And he's really been pushing a very much of a centrist approach his entire election campaign. So I think that's probably what he's going to do moving forward.
OK. Ed Stringham, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.